Okay, now section 2, we want to go back and we want to look at our timeline, right? Or booklet, I'm sorry. Now section 2 has 6 questions. Okay, so let's go back. All right, and we have 41 slides. So section 2 is a little bit longer and has information you need to know, right? Because 6 questions is a good amount of questions of the test, right? 6%. So section 2 is real estate license law and what the qualifications are for licensure. Okay. Which you guys already passed because you're both approved, ready to take your test already. So. Okay, so you need to know the Florida statutes and what regulates the law in Florida. So there's statutes and rules that are important to real estate. They basically shape what's legal and illegal with real estate. Okay. So Florida statutes. So chapter 20 of Florida statutes is the organizational structure. Okay. It's the executive branch of the Florida government. So it's like an umbrella. Chapter 20 is the umbrella that is the overseer of the executive branch. And underneath that umbrella, there's a whole bunch of different chapters for every industry, for everything. Okay. But all you need to know is chapter 475 Florida statute is called the Real Estate Professional Practice Act. Okay. So you need to know chapter 20 is the umbrella. 475 Florida statute is the Real Estate Professional Practice Act. And it's broken down into 4 sections. You need to know these 4 sections because you'll be questioned somehow on them. Okay, part 1 pertains to real estate brokerages. Okay, that's real estate brokerages, schools, all those things, but it's under brokerages. Part 2 pertains to real estate appraisers. So 1 is brokerages, 2 is appraisers. Part 3 pertains to commercial real estate sales commissions, the Lien Act. So just remember, part 3 is real estate sales commissions. And part 4 is commercial real estate leasing commission act. So you have part 1 is brokerages, schools, and anything else. Part 2 is appraisers. Part 3 is commercial sales commissions. Part 4 is commercial leasing commissions. That's how you remember the 4 parts. Okay. 20 is the umbrella. 475 is the Real Estate Professional Practice Act. Part 1 is brokerage. Part 2 is appraisers. Part 3 is commercial sales. Part 4 is commercial leasing. Right. Now, chapter 455 Florida statute is the business and professional regulation. Okay. So 455 is the legal practice and procedure of the DBPR. So that's based 455 creates the DBPR. Okay. So remember, 20 is the umbrella, 475 is real estate, 455 is actually the DBPR. Okay. It's the legal practice and procedure for them. And one thing you need to remember, you may see this on the test. A non-US citizen may hold a professional license. So you don't have to be a citizen of the United States to hold a professional license. You just have to have the ability to work in the United States. You have to have a social security card. You have to have a green card. You have to have a social security number to get a license. Okay. But you do not have to be a citizen. Okay. Chapter 120 Florida statute, Administrative Procedures Act. This outlines this disciplinary process. Okay, so chapter 120 is what happens if rules are broken. Okay, legally. Chapter 61J2. Just remember the one that's weird with the numbered letter. Okay, this is the rules of the Florida Real Estate Commission. Okay. It's 61J2. It's Florida Administrative Code. It's the rules of FREC. FREC, and we're going to talk about what FREC is. FREC is the commission, the people who hold the hearings. There's going to be one coming up next week, I think. Every month you can watch them online. People who have criminal records that want to get a license or problems, they go in front of them and they have a hearing. And sometimes they let them get a license, sometimes they don't. People who are getting their license suspended or did something wrong, they can lose their license. You can watch the hearings. It's 2 days. The first day is like little stuff. The second day is the bigger cases. I could send you guys an invite. I have it in my calendar. The days are on. I usually have them playing on a TV in the background, like in the office. I kind of just pay attention to what's going on while I'm working. All right. So that's that. You guys good? So 475 is real estate. 455 is DBPR. Chapter 120 is the Administrative Procedures Act, the disciplinary process. 61J2 is the Florida Real Estate Commission rules. Okay. Remember, part 1 of 475 is brokerages, right? Part 2 is appraisers. Part 3 is commercial sales. Part 3 is commercial lease, right? So let's go over it. This narrows it down a little bit. Chapter 20, Florida statute. That's the executive branch of government, the umbrella. Chapter 475, part 1, brokers, sales associates, and schools. Chapter 455, Florida statute. That's the Department of Business and Professional Regulation and the professions under the department. 120, procedural process for all governmental entities authorized under the Florida Constitution. Okay, that's not just real estate. That's rules for everybody. If you're in a car business, if you're in a travel business, these are the procedure acts for everybody, not just real estate. Okay. 61J2 is just for real estate. That's the Real Estate Commission. So 455 and 120 is for everybody, all businesses. 475 and 61J2 is just real estate. Okay. So let's talk about the categories of real estate licenses. Okay. There's a sales associate license, a broker license, and a broker associate license. Okay. A sales associate license is what you guys are applying for. Okay. This is to perform real estate services for compensation under the direction of a broker or an owner developer. Okay. A broker requires additional education, experience, and passing the broker license exam. You must be a sales agent active for 24 of the last 60 months to qualify to take the broker exam. The broker associate holds a broker's license, but is registered as and works under the direction of another broker. So basically, a sales associate and a broker associate are the same, except this person holds a broker's license, but still works as a sales associate. You can't work as a broker associate and a broker at the same time. You got to be either this or this. Okay, so an example of that. You guys get your license. You want to work in real estate. You must work underneath a broker. No way about it. You're a sales associate for 24 months, right? Of the last 60 months. So 2 years. You want to become a broker. You take your broker exam and pass it. You become a broker associate automatically. You're still working for the same company. You're a broker associate. Nothing else changes but your license. You decide to open your own brokerage. You got to file the paperwork, do the license, do all the stuff. You become a broker. You can no longer work there. You have to leave that and go there. Now, you cannot be a broker and work for another brokerage. However, you can be a broker and open multiple brokerages. I could have 10 brokerages with different people, but I can't work for a broker. I can own 10 of them and be the qualifying broker, but I can't do this. Okay. Yep. Go ahead. What's up, Jeff?
When it comes to the first one, the sales associate, it says that there should be or must be under the direction of a broker or an owner developer. Do you mind explaining a little bit of the
I
owner
will.
developer?
Yep, we'll get into that in a little bit. Yeah, yeah. I don't want to confuse you, right? We'll get into it. An owner developer is somebody who has, let's say they have like a development and they're selling houses. Like, for example, I'm closing 2 deals. I had people bought 2 brand new houses being built next to each other. One's closing Friday, one's closing next month. Same family. I sold their houses. They're moving to 2 new houses. The owner developer, we went in there, sat down with them. We did the contract. They took over. The owner developer has their own sales agents. So when somebody walks into the owner developer, they don't need a realtor if they don't have one. They can just walk in and deal with them. So an owner developer, let's say Lennar Homes, they have sales agents that sell just Lennar Homes. If you work with an owner developer, you cannot sell private homes. You can either work with an owner developer or a broker. So if you work for Lennar Homes, you can only sell Lennar Homes in that development or other developments if they have you in different developments. You cannot go list somebody's house and sell it. Or you can't deal with a buyer somewhere else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
It's 2 different, it's the same license for the agent, but it's the rules. So we'll go into that in more detail. Okay.
Okay.
What's interesting too, an owner developer, if you work for an owner developer and you're paid a salary and no commissions or bonuses, you don't need a license.
Yeah, because
remember how it was with, right? Remember how that was with the apartment complexes when you're management? Remember, it's the same thing. When you work for an owner developer, you can actually sell their properties without being licensed if you only sell their properties and you're paid a salary. Okay.
But that's if they have less than 10.
No, that rule doesn't count for them.
Okay.
That's only for the CAM license, remember?
Mm-hmm.
That's
but I thought if you were working for owner development and they had more than 10 units,
no, that's property management.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't confuse it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because in this case, you wouldn't
building houses.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah. In this case, and sorry for interrupting, but in this case, it wouldn't really matter like how many houses it is that they have, because in reality, you're just selling them, and
right. Yeah. And they also have something called a group license. So if they have 10 developments, you can work in all 10 of them, but just those. We'll get into that later. It gets a little bit, but we'll get into that later.
All right.
So there's some other things too. Yep. Okay, so are you guys good on this? Like, for example, I'm a broker and Aiden's a broker associate.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So Aiden is underneath me at the brokerage as a broker associate. So Aiden can say, "Hey Dad, I don't want to work with you anymore. Go work for somebody else."
Right.
So he's basically a sales associate with a broker's license at this point. Right?
Okay.
He's also an instructor. So to be an instructor, you have to be a broker though. So you can't be a sales agent and get an instructor license. You have to have your broker's license to get your instructor license. That's a requirement. Okay.
Okay.
So Aiden has his broker license. He also has his instructor license.
Okay.
Okay. But these are the 3 you need to know how it works. Sales associate works underneath the supervision of broker, and all compensation must be paid to the broker. You got to remember that. You're going to see something on that. Okay. So all compensation has to go through the broker. Okay. So let's talk about the sales associate. Okay. You begin your career as a sales associate under a broker or owner developer. Okay. An owner developer is an unlicensed entity that sells, exchanges, or leases its own property, such as a real estate development company. See, when you're selling your own property, you don't need a license. If you're on the deed, you don't need a license. So a developer owns the property. So when he's selling his property, him and his people don't need a license if they're just selling his property. Right? That's how that works. Mm-hmm. The sales staff, like we just talked about, must hold a real estate license if they're paid commission or compensated on a transactional basis on bonuses. So if they're not getting that, they could be unlicensed. Okay. Yep. So Jeff.
So, if I'm understanding correctly, when a house is being sold by an owner developer, they don't need a real estate agent to, or like a license to sell because they're the one on the deed. But
They
does the buyer need a
no,
real estate agent? No.
no, doesn't need one. No, they should have one to protect them, because if I told you what was going on with these deals that I'm doing, plus I saved them almost 60 grand on 2 houses because I negotiated down. Like they wouldn't have done that. And what I'm going through in these deals, like if I showed you all the crap, like even right now, like the last minute things that the developer is supposed to give the bank papers, they haven't given them to them for 3 weeks. They've been waiting for them. You know, they just keep they're doing it as we speak. So, but
Gotcha. Okay.
no one's looking out for the buyer unless you have somebody representing them. And the developer doesn't like that because they got to pay me, right? The developer has to pay me, right? They pay me a commission, not the buyer.
Mm, yeah.
They'd rather not, right?
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yep. All right. So let's look at the application requirements. I'm going to go pretty quickly over this because you guys already applied. You already did this. So, you complete a real estate license application. The applicant pays an application fee in addition to the initial biannual license fee. The license exam fee and the fingerprinting process fee are paid directly to the vendors. That goes to the FBI, FDLE, like we did. The DBPR waives the initial license fee for low-income applicants, military personnel and their spouses, military veterans and their spouses. So they're able to have that part of the application waived. Okay. The Veterans Fee Waiver Program. You know what we're going to do? Hold on. We're at 11:55. Let's take a minute. Let's take a 10-minute break. Let's come back at 12:06 and we'll continue here. Okay.
Right.
I'll see you guys at 12:06.
Mhm.
Something in the chat. Okay, guys, everybody ready to get back to it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's talk about the Veterans Fee Waiver Program. You may see something about this, about the fee waiver for the veterans. The DBPR waives several fees for veterans and spouses who apply within 60 months of honorable discharge. Okay, they waive the application fee, the initial license fee, and the unlicensed activity fee. If it's beyond the 60-month period, veterans and spouses can request exemption only of the initial license fee. Okay, so while they're in duty or within 60 months of getting out, they get everything waived. After 5 years, it's just a license fee. Okay. So let's look at this. If these are the waivers. So if you qualify for the low income waiver, you still pay the application fee and unlicensed activity, but they waive the initial license fee. Military spouses, military personnel under spouses. Okay. You still pay the application fee and unlicensed fee, but not the initial fee. That's after 60 months, right? But if you're a military veteran and a spouse, you get all three waived. Okay. Within 5 years. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Fingerprints. Applicants' fingerprints are scanned and electronically submitted to the FDLE and FBI. That's what we did. For Jeff and Leah, you already did all your stuff. So
Excuse me.
Yep.
Is it recording on?
yeah, I left it on. What I do is instead of turning it on and off so I don't forget, when we take our breaks, I'm just gonna mute it and turn the camera off, and I'll just let it keep going. Because sometimes I just forget and I don't want to miss any minutes of it. So just in case ever.
That's a wise decision.
Rather, who cares if it's a little bit longer?
Oh,
So background check of criminal history. So an applicant has to attach the application full details of all cases. If there was a conviction of crime, found guilty, they pled not guilty or no contest, disclose information even if the action was adjudicated or withheld. Now, if something was expunged, that means the record of the criminal conviction is destroyed or sealed after time to verify. Okay. So what are the background check questions? You guys both did these, right? Because remember on the application, you had to say yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, like all the stuff. So they ask you, have you been convicted of found guilty of a crime, blah, 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 right? Has a judgment or decree been against you in the court? Have you ever had an application of registration or certification denied? Has any license, registration, or permit been disciplined or revoked? So the background checks keep going. So you have they're asked not to disclose personal financial information. You don't have to give financial info. Applicants who answer yes to any of the 4 questions you have to supply documentation from the clerk of courts, the police department, or the government agency who has legal records of the action or discipline or action. Also, you should never assume past records have been expunged. Expungement is not automatic. So when something's expunged, it's gone. You wouldn't have to disclose it. However, you got to make sure it's expunged because you can actually say you didn't have something happen. And even if that something happened, wouldn't have stopped you from not getting a license, they'll actually not give you a license because you lied about it. Or if something small happened and they find out a year later and it somehow didn't come up, they'll take your license away a year later because you didn't disclose it, even though it might have been something that didn't get you, no license. Last month, there was a guy who applied for a license. He did 5 years in jail for robbery like 10 years ago, 12 years ago. They actually let him get a license. There was a guy who had securities fraud 20 years ago. They let him get a license. Sometimes they let people get licensed that you think they wouldn't, right? I mean, first of all, I wouldn't want somebody who went to jail for 5 years for robbery working for me, because if I got to trust them to go in the house, what if they have a bad day and they want to steal somebody's jewelry? If they did it once, they'll do it twice, right? It's a character thing, right? So one thing I learned from that is I now do a background check on all agents, because now that's on me. If I hire them and they go in and rob somebody, now I'm in trouble too for my brokerage. I'm not going to risk my business because the DBPR didn't do their background check, or they did and let them go. Because if something happens and I go in there and say, well, you let him get a license, like that ain't going to work. So I have, for me, you got to be careful with that now. Before you could just hire an agent because you knew it was done. But now you got to make sure. Because when you build a business and one thing can take your license away like that, So the applicant agendas. The applicant who answered yes to the background questions or whose fingerprints revealed previous criminal convictions require FREC review. And now this is what I'm talking about. They have hearings. So FREC, they have a consent agenda. There's no appearance. It's all done through the computer, like on Zoom. FREC reviews the application and supporting documentation to approve the applicant or place the applicant on a summary of applicant appearance agenda. The applicants who appear before the FREC can explain previous offenses, present letters of characters, and the person can have people speak on their behalf. FREC votes to approve or deny the application. You guys can watch that online. The application processing time periods. Okay, it can take 30 days, and that'll check for errors and omissions and notice of insufficiencies. So during that time, if there's any errors or anything, you would get that online, get a notice. And they have up to 90 days to approve or deny. So technically, they have up to 90 days. If you're denied, the applicant has 21 days to request a hearing. So even if you're denied, you can still have a hearing. That's what a lot of those people do. They get denied, they have a hearing, and then sometimes they get approved. Now, the next status is exam eligible. Exam eligible, you guys have. That's what you have right now. You guys are exam eligible. Like if you go into your DBPR look, they'll say exam eligible. Okay, the applicant is considered qualified once application is completely processed and approved. The application status changes to exam eligible in the DBPR system. The exam vendor will send an email notification when the application can schedule the exam. So like you guys can schedule your exam right now. However, you can't take it unless you have the certificate. You actually, when you sign up and schedule your exam, you got to put what school did you go to, Pier 21 Realty LLC. Then you have to upload the certificate to the DBPR. There are people who took the certificate, took the test, didn't upload a certificate. There were hearings last month. They got a $500 fine for not uploading a certificate. So you got to make sure you upload a certificate. Then you print a certificate with your driver's license. And then when you take your test, you got to hold it up to the camera and they got to verify it. So that's the process. So, or if you go in to take the test at the center, you got to take a copy with you. Okay. So that could be scheduled, but then you would have to write down that email and make sure you send it before you go take your test. Okay. So the applicant is responsible for providing proof of completed pre-licensure education to the testing vendor. That's the piercing view, like I was just telling you. Okay. Reciprocity for U.S. service members and spouses. Now, this is just for U.S. service members. You may see something on this. It applies to active U.S. Armed Forces service members and spouses of former service members and spouses. They must hold a valid license of the same type in any state in the United States, U.S. territory, or foreign jurisdiction per Chapter 455, Section 02, Florida statute. They must submit an application and fingerprints, and it applies to all professions licensed by the DBPR. Barber, financial, anything. The initial application fees are waived except the fingerprint fee, and no pre-license course and no state exam are required. So if you're in the military or ex-military and you have a license in another state or any of those jurisdictions, all you do is fill out the application, get your fingerprints, and you get your license automatically. Only for military and ex-military. It does not work for anybody else. So that's a pretty cool thing for them. What's up, man?
And how does that work for when I was in the office, I remember that you were saying that in certain states they may have things that are different. For example,
Yeah.
you were saying how in that other state that I think it was Tennessee that you applied for, that state has a different approach when it comes to like mortgages and like failing to pay on those mortgages
Yeah,
as
sure, sure.
opposed to
The
as
lien
opposed to like
periods are
here in Florida. So how does that work with them? Like, do they know that information? Do they like how does that?
It's
How
it's
do
on
they?
them. It's on them to learn it, man. Like
Oh,
like if I was military, I can get a license in all 50. Like if I was in any other state, I can get a license right now. Now, not every state does this, just Florida.
oh, okay.
No, so if I was in Tennessee and I was military, I can come to Florida and get a license like that, paperwork. But it's my
Uh,
responsibility to learn the laws.
makes sense. Makes
I don't
sense.
know if other states do that, but I mean, honestly, it's a benefit to the military, but I don't know if it's a good benefit because it can get them in trouble. You know.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So let's talk about you. You'll see this on a test, almost sure. What is a Florida resident? Okay, so how do you define it? A resident, you have to reside in Florida continuously for a period of 4 calendar months or more within the preceding year. Not having a driver's license in Florida, not voter registration in Florida, not having business in Florida, not having a real estate license in Florida. You have to reside in Florida continuously for a period of 4 calendar months or more within the preceding year. That makes you a Florida resident.
And by proceeding is referring to like the last year, I guess, like this year and the
Yeah,
current year. Okay.
within the last year. Yep, within the last 12 months. Yep.
Okay. And how's that proved?
What's your address? Where do you live? Where's your
Uh,
lease?
oh,
Who do you live with?
okay. All right.
What address is on your driver's license?
Got it.
Florida residency is not required to hold a Florida real estate license. Aiden just moved to Florida with his license. He's been here the last 3 years, but he's been living in Pennsylvania legally. He just changed his driver's license to Florida because he physically moved here. Right? So you could be out of state. You could be in another state and have a Florida license. He did. So when he moved here, we updated his license with the state. Now, this is when you're applying, right? So what's a Florida resident? Somebody who lived there for the last for 4 of the last 12 months. You may see that on a test. They may say, if you have a driver's license, if you have a voter card, right? You may see something like that.
Thank you.
Okay, let's look at mutual recognition agreements. This recognizes the education experience from another state or nation that has mutual recognition agreement with Florida. It applies to non-residents only. A certification of license history from a mutual recognition state is required to show you your history. And you must pass a state-administered Florida-specific 40-question real estate law exam with a grade of 30 points, which is 75. So if you're in another state doing business there, now if you're not in the military, right? If you're in the military, you wouldn't have to do this. But if you're not in the military, you have to take a 40-question test. Okay? And you would get your Florida license. That's called mutual recognition. There's like 11 states or 12 states that do that. So mutual recognition is not reciprocity. Okay? Florida has no reciprocity. So reciprocity is when there's an agreement between 2 states that allows a real estate licensee with a valid license in one of the states to obtain a license in the other without any further exams or education. Florida does not have reciprocity with any state. The only time that works is the U.S. service member exemption that we talked about. If you're a service member, you get that. So Florida does not do that with any other state. You must take the 40-question test. or take everything, right? That's how that works. Now, North Carolina allows, if you have a Florida license for 2 years, active for 2 years, you can get your North Carolina license with just paperwork. Then you have to do the 90 hours continuing education to be the full broker. But you don't have to take a test. That's just the way they work. I mean, I don't know if it's changed, but that's when I did mine. So, but there's no reciprocity. The only reciprocity is that military situation where you just do the paperwork. So let's look at sales associate qualifications. What do you need to be a sales associate? So you have to be 18 years or older, high school diploma or equivalent, possess a social security number. You have to be honest, truthful, trustworthy, and good character. You have to be competent and qualified. And you must disclose any convictions, plea of no contest, or if you're under investigation and know it. Names or aliases, like maiden names or anything else before you were married or anything like that. Had disciplinary action taken against a professional license in any state. Denied a real estate license in Florida or in another state. What are your education requirements? You got to complete course 1. That's what we're taking now. That's 60 hours of instruction and 3 hours for the end of course exam. And you must pass the course with at least 70 on a 100 multiple choice question exam. You must get a 70%. Any questions on that?
No. I did have a question. That 920-717-4948 number, whose number is that?
What is it?
I got a text message saying you've got 63 hours sales associate class this morning, but it's from a 920 number.
Oh, that's probably from the system.
The little automated thing. Okay.
Yeah, it's automated. Yeah, I don't know
what's the office number?
844 474 3721.
3720.
21.
Got it.
Okay. It says it spells out 844 Pier 21.
Okay, got it.
It spells
okay.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, the tech that might be coming from the automated system to remind you. Yeah. Okay, you guys good on all this stuff? Cool. What time did it text that to you? Like just before?
Yeah, it was from before.
Okay, yeah. Okay, cool. Okay. Yeah, that's from the online site. Like when you ran it through and you check the SMS, so it'll send you a reminder, I think, every day for class. I think. Okay, good. Okay, so education requirements, just went over those. So let's look at the summary of education exemptions. So there are exemptions. Like if you remember on the application, it said, did you have a 4-year degree or are you an attorney, right? So if you have a 4-year or higher real estate degree, okay, you're exempt from this course. You would be exempt from the broker course too. You're exempt from post license because you already have the degree. Your continuing education is not exempt. And your license exam is not exempt. You still have to take the test, but they don't make you take the courses because you already know it from the education. Okay, so your post and 1 and 2, you don't have to take the classes. You just can take the test right away. But you still have to do your continuing education every 2 years. If you're a Florida licensed attorney, you're exempt from this course, the first one. You're not exempt from the broker course. You're not exempt from post license. They're exempt from continuing education because they have continuing education for the law. So they don't have to do that. And they're not exempt from the license. They still have to take the license course, the license exam, I'm sorry. So everybody takes the exam. Nobody gets away without the exam. But there's exemptions here, okay? So let's look at time limits. The license application expires 2 years after it was received by the DBPR. So you guys applied to the DBPR. Whatever date is on that, you have 2 years to take the test and pass it from the date of the application. Okay? Not the date of the course. So your completion date on this course will be October. It goes by the date you applied, not the date on the course. Okay? Okay, applicants that do not pass the state license exam within 2 years of their course completion date must retake the course. So if your course was taken, 2 years pass, and then your course goes longer, you can reapply and take the test if the course still hasn't passed 2 years. Does that make sense? Hey, can you read that real quick?
Yes.
And then the completion date is the date that the student passed the pre-license end of course. Okay, give me 1 second, guys. Can you hold on 1 second?
Yeah.
Okay, you guys there? Okay, so we're good then. Okay, so the time limits. Okay, the license application expires 2 years after it's received by the DPR. So you got that, the 2-year thing?
Yep.
Okay. Applicants that do not pass the state license exam within the 2 years of their course, the completion date they must retake the course. The completion date is the date of the student passed the exam or the end of course exam. Okay. So let's go. So let's talk about the license examination. Okay. Applicant schedules examination appointment with the testing vendor. They have 2 forms of ID. There's a grade report from the class. Examinations is 100-question multiple choice. You need a 75% correct to pass. You can take it in English or Spanish. The Spanish exam must be requested when making the exam reservation. The exam is graded at the test site. So when you take the test, you get the grade right away. It tells you if you passed or not, right on the screen after you submit it. That's the state test. Okay. This is all for the state test. Okay. Okay. Now you have the photo bearing exam report. So if you pass, you get a pass notice. Your initial license is inactive. So when you get your license, it's inactive. Okay. You got to complete a request of change status form with the employer information. So what that is, I have your packet here already. So this is your packet all ready to go. there's a change of form. That's this right here. This form. So once you have your license, we fill the form out. We're going to sign everything, and I activate you. So then you would be active, right? Okay.
Nice.
Then there's a fail notice. Okay, your picture's on it. The notice indicates the points scored in each area. So for any reason, if you fail it, it tells you how many you got right out of the questions. It doesn't tell you your score if you pass. It tells you your score if you fail, and it shows you how many of which questions you got wrong, so you know where to study. So if, like, it tells you each section, you got 10 out of 10, 5 out of 6. It tells you exactly what you did. You're allowed to you can retest 24 hours after. You can take the test every day if you want. Reviewing the exam within 21 days. You can actually request a review and sit down and look at it. And if there's something wrong on it, you can request a hearing about it. I've never had that happen, but that's the rules. You can do that. Post-license education. Okay. Once you get your license, okay, the licensee must complete post-licensing before the expiration of their initial license. So a sales associate passes their course, passes their test. That license is good for a certain amount of time. Before that license, like, I usually have you do the post-licensing right away because it's out of the way then. You do it, you learn it, it's out of the way. Because it has to be done before your license expires or you lose your license. So the 45 hours is for post, for sales associate. For a broker, it's 60 hours. You got to pass the end of the course exam with a 75 or higher, which it's online. It's an online course. You can retake the test one time. So if you fail it, you can take it again. It's not that hard. Failure to complete the course will cause your license to become null and void by operation of law. You can't extend it. You can't do anything. When you go to renew your license, it won't let you renew it unless this is done. Okay.
So is continuing education or post licensing education something that you voluntarily do?
Yes, you have. No, it's mandatory. You have to do it.
Oh, it's mandatory. Okay. I thought that was just escalating yourself.
So the 45 hour you have to do before your first license renewal.
Okay, before 2 years.
Then after that, it's 14 hours every 2 years.
Okay. All right.
So the first one is 45 hours. You do it, boom, done. Then you don't do it for every 2 years. You do it 14 hours, 14 hours. I have a package. It's $29 for 14 hours. It's online. I do it cheap so I can just help people get it done.
Nice.
I'll show you all that. We'll worry about that later. Don't worry.
Yep.
But just so you know, for the test, you got to do 45 hours before the first renewal. And then after that, 14 hours every 2 years.
Okay. And the first renewal is on the second year, I guess.
Say it again.
The first renewal would be like in
The
2
fourth
years.
year. It'll be the fourth year. It'll be after. The first one is the 45 hour. You won't do the 14 hour for the next 2 years.
Oh, okay. Got you. Okay. So the 45 hours.
You don't do them both. You don't do both. The 45 covers the 14 for the first.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. And then after that, it's 14. Like, I'm doing my 14 now for 25. I already did 3 of them. I got to do 11 more. I always stay ahead. I get them done and they're done. Like, I don't even,
Hey man, I like it like that.
I always do everything ahead. I got to do my, I'll have to do another 4 for instructor too. I got to do that 14, and then the core law will go over, and I got to do 4 more. Then I got to do for Tennessee, I got to do 120 hours for them, and for Carolina, I got to do 8 hours. Like, I got to do all this by like June.
Yeah, it sounds like it's better to do them proactively so that they don't accumulate whenever you have multiple licenses and
stay ahead.
multiple things.
Like the one for Tennessee is like almost $1,000 I got to pay to do it. It's crazy.
Holy.
But I got to do it.
That's good.
This stuff here in Florida is cheap. The 45 hours costs you 120, I think, and then the but I'll set you up with that, and then the other one costs $29 every 2 years. That's nothing.
That is nothing.
Okay, so now there's something called hardship cases. Hardship cases allow 6 additional months to complete post-license education. The extension must be in writing to FREC with basis for requesting and documentation. FREC has no legislative authority to extend past 6 months. You know, God forbid somebody's deathly ill. You know, somebody's going through cancer treatment or something. They may do an exception, but it's got to be serious. Like they're not just going to say, okay, 6 more months, right? So tips regarding post-license. Do not enroll until you're licensed. So you can't sign up for it till you have a license number.
Makes sense.
So you don't want to do it ahead of time. Enroll soon after becoming licensed. And don't wait to the last minute. Like get it done. Continue education. Okay, so now we went over post, right? That's the first redoing. Now, after that, you got to do 14 hours of continuing education required every 2 years, consisting of 3 hours of core law. And you may earn 3 hours of core law by taking core law each year. So the core law course changes as the laws change.
Yeah.
Then you have 3 hours of business ethics and 8 hours of specialty credits. You may earn 3 hours of specialty credit by attending a legal agenda session of the FREC. So you can go to Orlando and sit in a hearing and watch the whole hearing and be there, and you get 3 credits for it.
Okay.
So you can watch them online, you know, for free and just pay for $29 and not have to do that.
Yeah.
But if you want to drive to Orlando and pay for parking and you do
that might be a little worse. I don't know.
Yeah, right. It's pretty cool to see it. You know, it's pretty cool to see it. I mean, I just watch it online. I'll send you the links for it, man.
Nice. Does it still count if you watch it online?
No. You got to go there. You got to go there. Let me see something real quick. Second here. So next week is it's this one. Hold on. It's the 24th. So it's actually after your class. It's these two here. I can send you. You can watch them. So it's the week of the 24th in October is when they're doing it. I thought it was next week.
It's a lot of hours.
Yeah, it there's breaks in between and stuff, but it's a bunch of hearings. Sometimes they end early too. Yeah, they end early too. All right, so we're good. Give me 1 second here.
Yeah, it's like essentially a little court hearing, and sometimes people show up.
Okay, that's good for that. Now, what are the broker requirements? So that's the agent requirements. What are the broker requirements? So the Florida sales associate must complete 45-hour post, right? You must have that done for your first renewal. Then you must complete the 72-hour broker course. That's the FREC course 2. This is FREC course 1. So there's a 72-hour broker course. That's the pre-licensure. Like this is the sales pre-license. There's a broker pre-license. You must hold a license for 24 months of the last 5 years, right? You may see on a question, you must be an agent for 24 months. They try to trick you. That's not the answer. The answer is 24 active of the last 60, right?
Yep.
You got to remember that. You must pass a state-administered license exam. Then you must do the 60 broker post-license course, right? 60-hour course. Now remember, 24-month held as an active real estate license in the previous 5 years. As a sales associate working for a Florida broker or for a broker in another state. So if you're in another state and you're an agent for 2 years or more active, you can go right to Florida broker license. You don't have to get a sales license. One of my agents, he was a licensed agent in New York or New Jersey for 5 years. So he went to being a broker right in Florida. He went right to the broker license. He didn't have to go through sales. Okay.
Nice.
As a sales associate working for a government agency or a broker in another state or nation, as long as you had that 24 months active in the last 60, all of those qualify. Okay. Registration and licensure. Registration is placing on record with the DBPR the name and address of each licensed broker and sales associate, name of business address and sales associate's employer, active or inactive license status, broker involvement in the real estate entity. Okay, let me explain this, what this is. When you're a sales agent, you're licensed. When you're a broker, you're licensed, right? Now, when I own a real estate brokerage, I could have partners on the real estate brokerage with me who are not licensed, but they cannot perform real estate duties. So if I want to have a partner and they have no real estate license, they can be my partner on the business, but they cannot show houses. They cannot negotiate contracts. They can just be a partner. They can handle the marketing. They can handle the training. They can be an investor privately, money-wise, right? They can just be invested for money to get money to make a part of the business, right?
Gotcha.
That person must be registered. So they have to be registered with the DBPR. A licensee is licensed with the DBPR. Does that make sense?
It does, but just to double check. So if you hire someone that's gonna be showing, is gonna be doing some like real estate duties, like showing houses, like signing contracts and
Talking to clients like you're doing. Yep.
Yes. So they need to be licensed, but if they're
Correct.
not doing that, and instead they're gonna deal with another aspect of the business.
Right. If I was hiring you and you were talking to my clients, you don't have to have a license. You could, but you would have to be a W-2 employee.
Gotcha. But I will have to be registered. And that registration, what is that under?
No. That would no. Employees wouldn't have to be registered. Only officers, only owners.
Oh.
So you can have an assistant who handles just paperwork and doesn't talk to nobody.
Okay.
And does advertising. They can be a W-2 employee. They can't be 1099, but they don't need a license. They don't have to be registered either. They just can't do any real estate activity. Now, if they're an owner or officer of the company, they must be registered.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Good. Now, there's something called prima facie evidence. Okay. Prima facie evidence is evidence that is good and sufficient on its face to establish a fact, unless refuted by evidence to the contrary. Prima facie evidence will prove a case. So if a real estate license is prima facie evidence that a licensee holds a current license. Like if I say I'm a real estate agent and I look up online and show you my license, that's prima facie evidence. I'm a licensed agent.
Yeah.
It just proves it, right?
Okay.
So that's used in court, right? So like if I'm a real estate agent and they need to prove I'm a real estate agent, they say, here's his license, right?
Amen.
There's nothing to say. Here it is, right?
Got it.
So let's talk about the real estate services. Now, there's acronyms that we use, right, to remember. So as real estate services, what do we use? What do we do? So a bar sale. A bar sale is the acronym. So first, you advertise real estate services. You handle buying of real estate transactions. You can appraise real estate, but remember, non-federally related transactions, right?
Gotcha.
You can rent or provide rental information. You can provide selling services, auction real estate, lease real estate services, and exchange real estate. Now, exchange is if somebody has a house on the beach in New Jersey, somebody has a house on the beach in Florida, they want to trade houses. You can do that. You get paid a commission for that. But you can do that.
Where does the commission come from?
What's that?
Where does the commission come from?
The buyer can pay some, the seller can pay some, or they both can, or one can pay. It just depends on the deal.
Okay. So in that particular transaction,
whatever you negotiate. I got to tell you, 25 years, I never did that.
Yeah, that sounds like a
really,
very.
Yeah, it's a very
Yeah, it's a punny.
Yeah, I've never done an exchange.
All right.
I mean, I know what the paperwork is. I have the paperwork in the system, but I never had a situation like that ever.
Okay.
Compensation. Okay, what's the definition of compensation? Anything of value or valuable consideration, directly or indirectly paid, promised, or expected. It can just be expected to be paid or received. A presumption of acting as a real estate broker can be made in a disciplinary case if an individual performs real estate services for another. So, for example, if you don't have a license and your neighbor asked you to sell the house for them, can you help me sell this house? And you knowingly help them sell their house, you broke the law. Unless your name is on the deed, you cannot be involved in that transaction without a license.
Okay, but
Okay.
what if that person gets the house under contract, like they're gonna be the buyer, and then they assign the contract to somebody else, like a wholesaler?
No, that's wholesale. You can no, they can assign it because they're on the contract then.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the minute you're on the contract, do whatever you want. But
Okay.
you cannot give advice or help anybody that you're not in a contract with by law. Now,
Got
does it happen? I'm sure. But you can't do that. You know,
Okay.
a lot of these wholesalers that are helping other people wholesale and they're not on the deal, they're breaking the law.
Makes sense.
And if it's documented in an email, like if that wholesaler sends an email to the person and that person something goes wrong, they can go report that. They'll be a class 3 felon charged with up to 5 years in prison and up to a $5,000 fine. And they will prosecute it.
Well, there is that.
They don't mess around with it. Yeah. And then try doing any real estate as a felon. Never going to happen. So the presumption of acting as a real estate broker can be guilty. And you may be liable even if the individual was not compensated for the services of real estate. So if you help your neighbor sell his house and you didn't even make about $1, and let's say you got involved in it and the deal went wrong and they made a complaint and they filed a lawsuit and they say you talked to them about it, guess what?
Yeah. Not a good place to be at.
Oh. So let's talk about exemptions from licensure. There are a couple things that there are exemptions for it. Okay. So the 5 general groups of exemptions. Number 1 is your owner exemption. If you're going to be the buyer or seller, you don't need anybody. Exemptions based on careers. There's certain careers, and I'll go over them in a second. The salaried employee exemptions. Remember, if you work for a property manager and you're salaried, you don't get commissions, or you work for a developer and you're salaried, you don't get commissions, right?
Yep.
You have that exemption. Court and legally appointed persons. And then there's a couple of miscellaneous ones. So let's talk about the owners who are exempt from real estate. Take a 10-minute break. We'll come back and finish this off. It's 12:50. Come back at 1:01.
Sounds great.
All right.
Mhm.
So owners who are exempt from real estate. So owners of property may buy, sell, exchange, or lease their own property.
Yeah.
Individual property owners, officers, directors of corporations, and owners of other business entities. So if you own a company, it's in the company's name, or you're a director, or you're involved in the company, you can do that. A partner in a real estate partnership, provided each partner receives normal prorated shares of profits. So if you have four partners, or three, let's say you have four partners or three partners, and you each receive a third, you don't need a real estate license to sell it. But if one partner owns 50% and one owns 25 and 25, you need a license. It can't be unequal shares. It has to be equal. Okay.
Got it. Okay.
And then owners of timeshares, you can sell your own timeshare. Okay. So that's the exemption for owners. Now, what careers are exempt? Attorneys at law acting in the attorney-client relationship. That's like a probate or, inheritance. So a Florida attorney license does not entitle attorneys to compensation for performing the real estate services. They can handle the transaction, but they cannot be paid for it unless they have a license.
Oh.
CPAs, when performing accounting duties, don't need a license. And state certified and licensed appraisers, when conducting appraisals, don't need a license. They have a appraiser license, right?
Okay.
That's careers that are exempt. Now there's salaried employees exemptions. We talked about these.
Mhm.
They must be paid a salary, not compensated by commission or transaction basis, who buy, sell, exchange, or lease properties for their business employer, property management company, or builder, right? Developer.
Mhm.
Who work in an apartment on-site rental office in a leasing capacity, who are managers of condo and cooperative apartments, who rent units for a period no longer than a year. So if you ever notice, leases go 364 days. Because if you go a year or more, you got to have is different laws.
Now I know.
So you move in October 1st, you move out September 30th next year, right?
Mm.
Of an owner developer, real estate developer who do not receive commission. They're the exemptions. Now, what about the court or other legally appointed individuals? So you have court appointed individuals. This is personal representatives designated in a will, an executor of an estate. The court appoints them, they can handle the transaction. Attorneys in fact, that's a power of attorney for purpose of signing a real estate document. Okay. Power of attorney cannot be used to authorize an individual to conduct real estate services. So a power of attorney can't be on a contract or in a listing agreement, but they can sign the closing documents. So my buddy was in Afghanistan. I sold his house and bought another one for him. He signed all the documents digitally from Afghanistan. He gave me a power of attorney to sign the documents at closing for him. That's an example of that. I couldn't sign a listing agreement for him. He had to do it digitally. But
So
power of attorney let me sign the documents at closing.
So quick question that I have, it's more like it comes from a foreigner perspective. Is a power of attorney a person, or is it the power that's given to a person?
It's the power given. It's the paper.
Oh, okay. It's a power given to that person.
It's giving that person the duty to do something.
Okay, gotcha. So they gave you permission to do that.
Yeah, he gave me the authority to do it.
Okay, gotcha.
And I signed the closings for him.
All right.
Yep. Miscellaneous exemptions. Individuals who rent lots in a mobile home, park, or travel park. Persons who sell cemetery lots. Registered security dealers selling business enterprises. Hotel and motel clerks who rent transient lodging. And tenants pay the finder's fee. It's the only finder's fee that's allowed. When you have an apartment complex and you have 3 empty units and you tell all your tenants, hey, if you find somebody for the units, I'll give you $50. It's a $50 maximum, and it's only for tenants paid finder fee. That would be illegal in any other case. Okay.
Gotcha.
And that's the end of section 2.